Salut, it's Jennifer, your French teacher in the south of France, and today I'm going to talk to you about something you may have seen in writing. I'm going to talk to you about the difference between QU'ON, Q-U-O-N, versus QU'LON, L'-O-N. Maybe you've seen that L' and wondered, what kind of pronoun is this? So that's what this lesson is about. Before we get started, be sure to look down in the video description and click on the link to print out your 6-page study guide to accompany this lesson. That way you can take notes and write your own examples as you watch and listen. And if you really want to master French grammar, be sure to sign up for my newsletter and French program for self-learners. All right, so what am I talking about? You may have seen this word, Euphony. You've probably never seen that word before. All that it means, and you don't need to remember that word, all that it means is an agreeable or harmonious sound. So if you've been studying French for any amount of time, you know how important it is for the language to sound pretty. So when this doesn't happen naturally, and believe me, there are times in French when it doesn't happen naturally, the French language requires that sounds be added or even that words be changed to avoid these really ugly breaks and gaps and choppiness that happens in the language when you have two sounds right next to each other that just aren't going to sound pretty when you pronounce them. So really today we are going to focus on a few key things, but let me first tell you a few examples of what things that we have to do to get this agreeable or harmonious sound in French. Sometimes we have to make contractions, like in the word abricot, right? So abricot, and apricot, is masculine. But if we say le abricot, you hear that chop, that break, that gap, le abricot. So instead we have to say L', and it becomes l'abricot. And that is a harmonious sound, right? Or you could have a liaison. So for an example, we would not say nous avons, it's choppy. Rather, we would say nous avons, right? Have you ever seen the hyphen T hyphen in inversion? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. And if not, you need to look at my lesson on forming questions with inversion. But the reason the hyphen T hyphen is there is because if it weren't, we would have AL. That's choppy. So we add the hyphen T hyphen, and it becomes a-t-elle. You see how much prettier that is? And then with certain adjective forms, we also do this. For example, mon ami. Ami, A-M-I-E, is feminine. So you should say ma ami, M-A, right? Because ma is the feminine singular possessive adjective, but that's choppy. So instead, we have this little exception to the rule, and we say mon ami, and that way it's an agreeable sound. Now, what we're going to focus on today is this QU'ON. QU'ON. That's one of the things we're going to look at. Now, this L' in front of the on is to avoid hiatus. Now, remember, that's another word. It just means a break or a gap or a choppiness to the language. So we add the L'. Also, we're going to have a look at L', which is pronounced l'un or l'une. Before we get started, let's look at a few more examples of how we can avoid ugly breaks and gaps in the French language. For a contraction, we would say l'aubergine. Now see, this is a feminine word, but we can't say la aubergine. It's not pretty. L'aubergine. Another example of a liaison would be ils ont rather than ils ont, because usually we don't pronounce the S on il. Or another example with hyphen T hyphen, arrive-t-elle instead of arrive-elle. And a different special adjective form, this time it's a demonstrative adjective, we're going to say cet hôtel instead of ce hôtel, because ce hôtel is not pretty, okay? Even though hôtel is a masculine word. Now, look at this, si long. You can see this sometimes, si long, rather than saying si on. So we're not going to get too many examples with si long today, but I wanted just to show it to you that sometimes this can happen. And then also you can see l'une as well as l'un. All right, so let's get right to it. Our first example, on obtient ce que l'on veut en étant gentil. On obtient ce que l'on veut en étant gentil. Now, this comes directly from my lesson on gerunds, French gerunds, and so maybe you've seen this before. It means one gets what one wants by being nice. Okay, so you see the que l'on. I'll explain to you what the L apostrophe is doing there. Have a look at this. We say que l'on instead of qu'on, but why? Now, QU'ON sounds the same as a very rude word in French, which is spelled C-O-N. All right? So it's not an agreeable or harmonious sound. Even though there's no choppiness to it, it sounds like a really bad French word. It's super rude, okay? So I don't recommend you starting to use that word. It doesn't mean that you can't say QU'ON, Q-U-O-N. Everybody does it, really, okay? In spoken French, I say Q-U-O-N all the time. Everybody else does too. But in formal or written French, we're very often going to see que l'on, d'accord? So remember that. Here's another example. In formal or written French, il faudra que l'on fasse très attention. You see that? In informal or spoken French, you'll very often hear il faudra qu'on fasse très attention. All right? The second one, il faudra qu'on fasse très attention, is correct. It's very correct. There is nothing wrong with it at all, except sensitive ears might hear this bad word, con. Right? Even though everyone would know you're not saying the bad word in the context of your sentence, it wouldn't even fit. But it's just one of those subtleties, okay? So have a look at this. Here's the question that someone asked me recently. What does the pronoun L mean in these sentences? On obtient ce que l'on veut en étant gentil. Il faudra que l'on fasse très attention. So what does the L mean? The answer is absolument rien. The pronoun L here, L apostrophe, which is just a le, doesn't mean anything in this sentence. Remember, it's only there so it won't sound like you're saying con. You got that? I know it sounds strange. It's just one of those things sensitive ears don't want to hear. But remember that it's very formal to do that, and there are people who speak that way, but it's perfectly fine to say QU'ON, Q-U-O-N, all right? So now let's have a look at this question. We're going to get away from the QU'ON because basically I told you everything you need to know about the que l'on versus QU'ON, right? It's all about not wanting to sound like you're saying a bad word. But what about l'un, L apostrophe U-N? Because people also ask me, hey, Jennifer, what is that pronoun L doing in front of un? So here's what you need to remember about un and une. Un and une are pronouns when they're followed by de or de. So we usually think of un and une as being indefinite articles. That's the way we learn it from the very beginning when we're learning French. For example, we say une table means a table. Une chaise means a chair. Un livre means a book. When they are followed by nouns like that, they are articles. But use l'un, L apostrophe U-N, or l'une, L apostrophe U-N-E, when they're followed by de or de. Because remember, in this case, they're pronouns. And just like que l'on, right, que l'on is more formal than qu'un, l'un is more formal than un. That is not to say that people don't just say un without the L apostrophe in front of it, okay? Let me show you some examples. Tu vas goûter un gâteau. Tu vas goûter un gâteau. Now here we have un gâteau. So un, followed by a noun, is an article, right? It means a cake. Voilà. So you are going to taste a cake. But if I said tu devrais goûter l'un de ces gâteaux. You notice that the un is followed by de in this case. That means that un is not an article. It's actually a pronoun which is referring to a cake. You should taste one of these cakes. All right, here's another example. J'ai une voiture rouge. In this case, I have a red car. Une is an article followed by the noun voiture. But l'une des voitures rouges est la mienne. L'une des voitures rouges est la mienne. One of the red cars is mine. In this case, une is not an article. You see how it's followed by des. It's a pronoun which refers to a car. Now, this is very important to remember that when we're using the L apostrophe in front of un or une, this is quite formal and it's used a lot in written French. You do hear it in spoken French, but in a more formal situation. Tu devrais goûter l'un de ces gâteaux. L'une des voitures rouges est la mienne. This sounds very, very pretty. Okay, so if you want to incorporate this into your everyday spoken French, it's not going to sound funny at all. It's going to sound like you're just speaking really, really good French, maybe even better than the French person you're speaking it to, all right? So it's very common but formal. In the informal way, you can say tu devrais goûter un de ces gâteaux, or une des voitures rouges est la mienne. You see, that's perfectly fine as well. So that's basically it for this lesson, guys. I just wanted to explain what that little L apostrophe was doing there, and I also wanted to remind you of what we have to do sometimes in order to make French sound as beautiful as it is when it's spoken. We do this by using contractions, liaison, that hyphen to hyphen, special adjective forms, the L apostrophe in front of on, and the L apostrophe in front of un and une. These are the things, some of the things that make French so nice to listen to. Okay, so remember to look at the links down in the video description below, print out your study guide, and sign up for my newsletter and French program for self-learners. Merci beaucoup et à très bientôt.